What's wrong with my seat? Hold up. Hi, it's Eliza, and welcome to my podcast that I just started. It's called The Chai and Gossip Club. I basically wanted to have a safe space where I could share my thoughts, feelings, opinions, and I know that so many other brown women also do this, and I kind of wanted to do it as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I also want to kind of make sure that I'm not taking part in like echo chamber activity. Yeah, everyone's experience is very different, and I'm sure everyone's like opinion based on their experience is very different. And I just wanted to yap about me and my opinion. And I wanted a place where I felt understood and seen and maybe also inspire other brown women. Recently, I started yapping on TikTok, and I noticed that a lot of other brown women also shared similar experiences. This is so funny. So, how I started social media was I've always been on social media. I've always been posting ever since I was like 15, 18, 19. But I kind of blew up on TikTok a few years ago. And I, at the time, to my knowledge, was maybe the only one. This could be a straight lie. But I remember not seeing anyone else making like specifically darker skinned brown girl content, especially amongst South Asian women. Of course, like black women have always been having this conversation, and a lot of my learning about racism, colorism, and like learning to navigate everything, workplace, school, boys, it was all like I learned from black women. I was like making content on TikTok about, it was just honestly funny, kind of clickbaity, but just like mostly funny, sarcastic brown girl content, and a lot of people did relate to it, but I did not know how easily you could get hate. I was getting hate. Like a lot of people would talk about how I was making my darker skin as like my personality trait. It was like the only thing I ever talked about, but in reality I feel like our community made it their personality trait to hate on anything darker, to be honest with you. So it was kind of interesting putting myself out there on the internet and like seeing the different reactions. And I've also experienced bullying on there. I experienced people spreading lies about me on the internet more than once, which was very shocking, especially like coming from other South Asian people. Not like there were non-South Asian people, but it was just like stupid. It was just like not worth having a conversation with. But it was different being hated by my own community, and like seeing so many brown, it was like a wake-up call for me, because I was just like, wow, there is so much internalized misogyny. Even with the friend groups that I was in, it was just like there was a lot of pick-me behavior, and I experienced bullying, and just I felt hated by my community. And I also lost a bit of my confidence in being myself and posting whatever I wanted. It was just like I felt a little bit disconnected. And at the time I was also kind of posting for views, and it wasn't anything, it started off genuine, and then like the numbers and views kind of got into my head, in the sense that I was just posting for views and numbers and not really being cautious about what I truly wanted in life and like what I valued. And so it was a good thing, a lot of the stuff that happened, but because I have now, I did so many different things in my life after I was just like, I'm gonna take a break, like an unofficial break from doing that type of content, because I was just like unhappy at the end of the day. I took a break years later, and I'm sure like over my vlogs, if you know me, you know that I did a whole bunch of different stuff, and now I'm kind of like returning to social media and like posting honestly the same thing, but with the same intention of wanting to connect with other brown women, but also my intention of connection is way more important than wanting like views and numbers. Like, of course, those things matter, but for me, I've kind of like returned to actually, I still want to talk about the brown girl experience. I still want to talk about our culture. I still want to talk about all of these things that I think are so important, and our community doesn't really talk about it. So here I am yapping about it and literally doing something I have talked so much crap about. I've talked crap about podcasts, and like, oh, anyone can buy a microphone and starting a podcast, and here I am doing exactly that, but with the intention of wanting to connect and talk about like really important things. So yeah, I've recently just gotten a bit more confident and a bit more, I just have more self-love now, and I have more respect for myself. So I was like, actually, I've always wanted to make content. This was always something that I wanted to do. And yeah, I didn't do it properly at 19 or like in my early 20s. And there is no like right or wrong time to start something or like return to something. You just do it, especially after you've like discovered yourself. So that's really important, and that's why I'm here. This concept called the Chai and Gossip Club, I actually came up with it a few years ago, and I think like 3-ish years ago, and over the past year and a half, honestly, it's just been kind of in development. I've just been like, what do I do with this? If you guys don't know, I'm actually an artist, and I make art. I make paintings, I make art prints, I make keychains, I make a lot of like stuff. I'm actually going to do like a relaunch because I started posting a lot last year and it gained its own audience, which I'm so proud of. And then this year I was like, I took a huge like unofficial break, and I'm returning. There's something really exciting coming out next month in July, which is actually it's coming out in like 3-ish weeks, which is super exciting, but which has been in the works for the past like 2 months, but the concept of it has been in the works for like 3 years. And I've always like wondered what I'm gonna do with this thing that I came up with, Chai and Gossip Club. It's something I was like, right, I have so many ideas. One of the mistakes that I did the past year was like talking to the wrong people about it. And there are certain people that are running around with these ideas that we've discussed and them claiming it as their own and putting it out on social media, and I was just like, it's the same thing as like when Michael Jackson was talking about how he had to make the song, otherwise it's gonna go to Prince. And I have this like sudden urge of like, oh my god, I need to work on every idea that I've ever gotten, because I don't like a lot of the stuff that's happening right now in the world, obviously, but I also just like don't really enjoy. I only recently understood who I am, and it made me love myself even more. Who I am, I like when I stand up for myself, when I stand up for other people. It's very rare for people to stand up for me, and I also recently learned the power of being a creative person and how beautiful it is. And I think for the past like few years, I've just had such low self-respect. I was in the wrong rooms, I was in the wrong places sharing my ideas and talking about things, and then just being taken fully like taken advantage of. And I'm sure like a lot of us have been in that specific place. And me sort of coming back is more so just like me falling in love with myself, falling in love with my process and my creativity, and like understanding how powerful I am. So I wanted to create a very specific space for me to talk about certain things that I find are very important. I started off with making short form content, obviously on TikTok and on Instagram, but then I realized that it's not long enough. Like I can only post over a minute on Instagram, and like I could post for 10 minutes, but like those are not enough for me because I am a yapper. Once I started gaining confidence, I was like, wait, I have so much to yap about. And I was like, I need a specific place where I can yap about all of the things. that I want to yap about, and there's so many things that are happening, and I feel like I want a specific place where I can gather my thoughts and put it out there in a constructive way for other girls like me. I don't want to say for the community because I have no interest in like I don't know. I don't really care about the community too much. I care about the brown girls. I've always been a brown girl's brown girl. That might be seen as negative, to be honest with you. I don't really care. Let's get started. So today I wanted to talk about why I've called it the Chai and Gossip Club. Chai, for obvious reasons. I only recently started drinking chai, like this year. I started because I'm dairy free, and I always like assumed that chai would only taste good with cow milk, which I'm allergic to. And then I started drinking with oat milk, and I was like, whoa, this is actually so good. And I kind of want to outgrow coffee. That's a bold statement, but that might happen. Also, I tried to start like a podcast thingamajig a few years ago, and it was called Espresso with Eliza because I was just gonna drink coffee and like yap. It didn't get anywhere. I think it's because I didn't like find my voice, and I didn't know what I wanted to talk about because like I said, yapper. I could yap about anything. Anyway, so I'm glad I'm back with a proper name. I'm glad that this version of me is coming back on the internet, and yeah, I'm so excited. Okay, so let's talk about the name. Chai. I think it's like I just wanted something that's a bit more obvious that it's for brown women and brown people. So I decided to do chai and gossip because that's genuinely something that we do. Something my parents still do is like they put time aside for chai. They'll sit and drink tea in the morning. Chaya is how we say it because I'm from Kerala. So we say chaya. They drink chai. I'm gonna say chai. I don't know why it comes. I think it's because I'm used to it. They drink chai in the morning. And then like later in the evening they'll drink chai, and then they'll sit and talk about work, about people. And that's something that happens in my home. When I drink chai, I gossip to myself. Honestly wanted to rewrite the meaning of gossip, like how people used to call women derogatory terms like slut, bitch, cunt, and all of that. And I've grown to be someone that like uses it as an enduring term amongst women. I call my girlfriends bitch a lot. I'm like, bitch. Or I'm like, oh, that's so cunt. I don't really allow men to use those terms. Yeah, I've never really allowed any men in my past to use those terms for women. I've always been adamant about it, and I end up being called like there are men in my, this is like a huge, I would say, what's the word, brag for me, because men in my past would call me a bitch because I never let their stupidity slide. I was not someone that you should play with. I was not someone that you can manipulate, except when it came to like certain romantic situations. I was definitely being used and manipulated, but like you live and you learn. But when it came to like male friendships, I never allowed men to disrespect women in my presence. That was something that just like never ever sat right with me. I have been excluded in friend groups because I would call out men for their disgusting behavior. This has happened in South Asian friend groups. I can do like I would love to do a whole story time. We're here to gossip. So obviously I'm going to do that. I'm obviously not going to name any names because it was stuff that's happened years ago. People grow and learn. I don't know who they are right now. I don't talk to any of them. But there have been men in my past that like would never allow them to use those terms on women, and so I kind of wanted to do the same thing with the word gossip because I think I heard someone say like, oh, women gossip and blah 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 blah, it's so bad. And in my head I'm like, but gossiping is so important and like needed, which I will get into. And I hated how the word gossip was being used. Like, we talk about how aunties gossip, we talk about how our community gossips, we talk about gossip in such a negative way. I was like, no, I need to do research and I need to talk about this. And I wanted to like rewrite the meaning of it, and I wanted to use my art initially, and I still might. And I think when I was writing stuff down, I was like, this could be a podcast, but am I someone who would ever start a podcast? Am I someone who would ever yap on here? I've gotten so many compliments about my voice. I've gotten compliments about so many things, and I was just like, it's giving I should. Even though myself, and I was just like so not into the idea of yapping and being part of like the echo chamber that is the internet. But anyway, let's talk about the word gossip. So the word gossip, the word originates from Old English gobsib, godsib, which means godparents or close spiritual friend, and it evolved to intimate conversations, to spilling secrets, and now it's women talk. So if you remember, back in the day, women have been historically excluded from positions of power and even rooms of power, like government, universities, religious leaders. Like, women weren't allowed to own property and they weren't allowed to run businesses and be in part of business, officially at least. So while the men were able to exchange information in a more official setting like court, political meetings, do research in university and be able to talk about that and be able to be in business settings, women, however, had to exchange information in settings like their homes, markets, and women-led religious groups or gatherings, and during childcare and community-based events. And yes, this was also socializing, but this was also where women were able to exchange information and learn certain things that are happening within their community, like who was trustworthy, who was dangerous, which was very important to talk about, disciplining children and navigating marriage, how to manage pregnancy and childbirth and anything related to healthcare, and talking about where opportunities are available and if it's a safe environment. Having these certain conversations are really important because it functions as what I like to call, and this might be so weird, like social intelligence network. So if you look at it, it is so important for women to exchange information, especially like back then, because to us, to them, sharing information was also a form of protection. So like I said, let's think back to a time where there was no Yelp review, no HR department, no background checks, no social media. Women knew which men were toxic and abusive. You know, women knew which merchants to trust and who was cheating their clients and customers, who was a good or bad employer, which doctor was good, competent, or weird. So when we think about a time like that, women sharing their stories and their information that they had was historically keeping the community safe, or specifically women and children safe at least. For example, let's talk about what's happening right now in TikTok. Women started sharing their experiences with marriage. Women started sharing their experiences with dating. A lot of women have shared pictures of their abuser, pictures of their predator, and they're sharing information like, hey, this person lives in this area. Don't go out on dates with him, or don't employ him, or whatever. It's sharing information. And there has been this new wave of, for example, in Korea, there is that movement where a lot of women have decided not to get married, or was it not to have kids? I think it's both, but I think it's mostly to not have children. I think it's 4B movement. There is a sense of a shift with people, at least the human race, where, or I would say in certain countries, because there's a lot of countries where child marriage is so normal. There's a lot of, I'm not going to talk about that, but there's like certain places where I would say that there is a shift in culture, at least when it comes to like dating. And TikTok recently, a lot of women have been talking about their experience when it comes to men and how now it's like we see it. We're able to see all of this information at once. We're able to see how men will use your body against you. They will, talk about wanting a family and wanting kids, and they get you pregnant and then they leave. And then you're effed because the law, like, we, over the years, like now at least, we have some sort of power. We're able to find employment. Yes, our pay is not equal, but we're able to own properties. We are able to start our own businesses. We have our own business account, things of that nature. So there's like this freedom of them just leaving, they're just like lead you on, and their form of jealousy is like leading you on, effing you over by giving you a child so that your entire like timeline of your plan, blah, 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 is like effed. They will literally F you over and they will leave. And that's something that has happened to so many women. And women are openly talking about their cheating husbands. Women are openly talking about the abuse that they went through. We now are able to see actual footage from security cameras, within both outdoors and like indoors. Some, like, I've seen footage of like men beating up their women, and there's like this wave of an awakening of us telling younger women, and also me learning from other women sharing their stories, like, hey, it's really important for you to work and get your education and take care of yourself, because for a very long time we have been told that men are our protectors, men are this, men are that. The society has told us this, and we're now like slowly learning to decenter it and center ourselves. And that is, I think, a very important conversation that we're having as women. And we're also having conversations about how much more important mental health conversation is, right? We are able to talk about how much there's a lack of like mental health awareness, how much people have decided to have kids but not raise boys and girls the same way. And so now a lot of the men have turned into problems. A lot of women have turned into perfect little victims for them. And things of that nature. Like, we've started having those important conversations. At least for me, learning about how things can turn so bad for you because of TikTok. So for me, like, learning from other women, learning from older women it has been so important for my emotional growth, and it further helped me work on my self-confidence, because I'm able to say no, I'm able to walk away from certain things because I'm aware that I'm someone that has more to lose than most men, because having children, having family, having these things, like, it takes more from women than it does from men. And so for me, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to be more cautious. Actually, my worth isn't tied to a man. Actually, it's okay if I don't end up getting married and having kids because, it didn't work out, or I kept meeting people that were toxic and I kept picking up on the toxic. Like, we now know what breadcrumbing is. We now know what manipulation looks like. We now know what love bombing looks like. And that's all because women started to get online and talk about their experience, and a lot of therapists and psychologists also decided to get on the internet and talk about it as well. Oh my god, I remember this one, I think therapist or psychologist, it's a woman. I remember she shared something and the man decided to sue her, and I think she got fired or something because she decided to post a video about something that the men were doing. And that was just so wild. Even when it comes to like sharing information on the internet, like, women are not safe. But anyway, I don't want to make this about like men versus women. I'm just talking about people versus like abusive people. Yeah, and also when talking about this, it helps you realize who to trust amongst women. It wasn't until I started having certain conversations with women about dating, about men, about people within even celebrities and like friend groups, like having these important conversations was how I learned who to trust, who to not trust. There have been women in my past where I was like, oh my god, there was a few like red flags and I just didn't trust myself. I didn't have enough confidence for me to like walk away from, but these are conversations that I keep hearing on and on and on about on social media, about, pick me girls, about internalized misogyny, like all of these things, right? And it's one thing to know and it's another thing to act on it. And yeah, the sharing of information has always been a thing for us women. For a long time, women have been expected to carry physical and emotional burden when we have these conversations and when we talk about it, we're able to discuss things like comparing our experiences. We're able to normalize certain struggles in life, but we're also able to normalize certain things that are not meant to be a struggle. Struggle love is not, this shouldn't be a thing. Anytime, this is so like out of topic, but anytime like a couple or someone talks about, oh yeah, we worked through so much, like we went through so much and like we're working through it and blah blah blah, like we went through like all of the blah blah blah, and then it's just like the guy's just been cheating on her and he's like begging her for her forgiveness this entire time, and they make it like we blah blah blah, and it's just like, that's not struggling, you dumbass. That's just him abusing you and you having low self-respect at the end of the day. Anyway, that's something that I felt like mentioning that I thought was like really funny. Yeah, so like normalizing certain struggles. We also exchange advice. Trust a girl will give you, especially like the girls who have like a good head on their shoulders, who respect themselves, they will always have the best advice. Also exchanging wisdom, learning how to navigate friendships, relationships, family, and ultimately having these conversations makes us feel less isolated. And today, women we do have access to power. We're able to get jobs, we're able to own property, we're able to have our own bank account, all of those like very basic things, by the way. But the word gossip and today's gossip has in some ways shifted from protecting, and there's still some aspects of it to this day, like for example the TikTok thing that I just talked about, but also it has shifted towards something a bit more sinister. And by the way, men do this as well. They just like to pretend that only women do this. I feel like gossip these days it's an umbrella term for other behaviors like entertainment at the expense of others. Oh my god, let's gossip and like talk shit about so and so. That's entertainment at the expense of others. Spreading rumors. Oh my god, I have been a victim of this. I've been a victim of this even last year. It's probably going on this year, but I don't know and I don't care. Going out of their way to destroy somebody else's character and socially isolating someone. To be honest with you, I feel like straight up bullying, in my opinion. So now the problem is that information is used with malicious intent most of the time. So now the problem is that information is being used with malicious intent instead of using it as a tool for protecting others and understanding each other. Like I said, I feel like we have lumped up so many things under the term gossip. Like, I think there is a difference between spreading rumors, humiliating someone, trying to damage someone's character and their reputation, and then women sitting together and then us discussing about our experiences, relationship, the workplace environment, family dynamics, and the obvious one, which is safety concerns. One is obviously very harmful, and the other is us connecting with each other and sharing information and just caring about each other. And so that's how I ended up creating the Chai and Gossip Club. I wanted to have a safe space where I could talk about life, culture, my experiences, womanhood, anything that's related to my experience as a brown woman, as a South Asian woman, as a darker skinned South Indian woman as well. I'm just a girl that didn't feel like I was heard and seen for a very long time. And I also find it difficult to find spaces, specifically like South Asian spaces, where I felt safe to talk about and open up about myself, especially as a darker skinned South Indian woman. There's a lot of spaces that I didn't really feel safe being myself. Whether it's friend groups, whether it's events. I live in New York. There is always events happening. There's always like South Asian events happening. I've always, I don't want to say always, but there have been good places I've been to, but there was always just like weird that's always going to be there. But I also it's exhausting going out of your way to be somewhere and then feeling unsafe, feeling like this is not a place where I'm supposed to be, and I don't want to do that anymore. I think I just wanted to create a place for myself and for other brown women. And so for me, I think this Chai and Gossip Club is kind of like my first step towards that direction. So I hope that these conversations that I have, which I feel like is like mostly one-sided because it's me talking to a mic, makes you feel loved and heard and seen, and also ultimately just less alone. I will be posting every week. I will figure out the schedule as I go because, like I said, I'm not really like a podcast person. I also don't really listen to other people's podcasts except interviews. And also, don't get it twisted, I will be gossiping about my experience. I won't be saying any names. I'm not here to do celebrity gossip. I'm here to talk about situations, not about people. I might talk about people, but then I won't name the people. I don't even know. I'm going to figure out as I go, and I'm going to learn as I go. So make yourselves a chai and get comfortable, and welcome to the club. And I am so glad that you're here, and I can't wait to see you guys in my next episode.